meeting. Wonderful. So we are convening the Housing Advisory Committee. Initial meeting. It is 7:03 on Monday, March 3rd, 2025. Look at the agenda here. We're called to order. We do have 4 of the 5 members. And I'm actually going to let, at least initially, each one of you introduce yourselves, because not everybody knows everybody. So I will start with Kim, and again, working around to me.
Who needs?
Nah. Lived in Bethany most of my life, have obviously veterinary practice here. I spent 12 and a half years on zoning, a good part of that with Alex and Lena. Particularly interested in this part and having alternatives for people that don't want to move out of town. You know, I think my mother wouldn't have moved out if she, you know, or would have moved back if she had an option. You know, I'd like to have something in place by the time I need something.
Good thing.
But you know, I think it's important to have options for, you know, for younger people, for
Hey, Lauren,
yeah.
we got everybody in
Did it.
person. This is so wonderful.
For, you know, people that need, you know, workforce housing, younger people, for older people, just to have a variety of housing options.
Yeah. You're perfect timing because we're just going around the table. So
And we just started.
Oh,
good,
sorry. I'm Leslie Higginspeople. I live on Hoodley Road, and what anybody who's been here a long time knows is the Dwyer House. That's one of the first things we learned when we moved here 34 years ago or something. Was we would never be here long enough to have the house named after us.
Same.
But I actually, just as a note, we went through the process recently of getting the house documented because it's old and put on the state register just for the heck of it, but also to learn about it. And it turns out they were ancestors of mine who built it, and I had absolutely no idea. A Sperry and a Wooding. So now I'll claim it. Even though it's still the Dwyer. It was totally unexpected. My professional career had largely been in developing housing options in small towns, particularly, and sometimes in neighborhoods in urban. And just working always with people who live in a community so that whatever's developed fits their needs and also fits the positive parts of a place. And contributes to a variety. But I would say on a personal note that to me, Bethany is pretty special for a lot of reasons, but one of them is the economic diversity. And I would like to see us make sure we're very intentional on what we can do within our limits to preserve that. So we have a real variety of incomes in town, and that is always tied to what the housing costs. That's me.
I'm Tom Mabry. I moved to Bethany in 2013. Kim's at fault for that. Sorry, guys. But my sister bought Kim's house, and I immediately, every time I drove to visit my sister, so my blood pressure came down 10 points. And I said, if something comes available with Bethany, please let me know. The house across the street did, and we moved in 2013. And I'm not a particularly political person, but the day I moved in, people were knocking on my door because it was election time, and the housing with affordable contingent that was at Green Haven. That had been turned on. Green Haven had started, and I started going to the town hall meetings. I felt like that was a good potential start for a town that didn't have it. It just brought me in. It captured me. I didn't capture it. And I've been driving the senior bus now for probably a little over 7 years. And I've become very aware by doing that, that seniors are here because of relatives or they have a house falling down around them.
Mhm.
And I think we can do better than that as a start for this town. And I think that if we can overcome the hurdles of a piece of property and zoning, I think it's within this town's capacity and in its best interest to for that as a starter. Maybe that would be the start of where people got comfortable with the idea if we did it right. And I'm hoping I can be part of that kind of solution here. Thanks.
Super.
Oh,
Lauren.
hi. Hello. Hi, I'm Lauren Sardi. I live on Downs Road. I grew up on Carrington Road. My parents and my mom's parents moved into a house on Carrington in 1986. So I've grown up here most of my life. Went to obviously Bethany Community School, Amity Junior High, and class of 2000 at Amity. Lived a few years elsewhere and then came back in 2018 to raise my family here. My husband works at the community school as a para. And what do? I am a sociologist. So I guess by nature, am very interested in a lot of the stuff going on at the town level. And I think I cannot say it any better than you both did in terms of, why I think this is really important. It's really important to me as someone who has lived here on and off since I was 4. So I was. Hi, Steve. How are you?
Hi.
I was-
Are you here for the meeting?
Yeah.
Come
on, sure.
We are just formally introducing each member of the advisory committee, so. Anything else?
I guess the only thing I would like to add is that my parents recently moved to Beacon Falls a couple years ago. And really the main reason for that is that there is no housing stock in Bethany that is, viable for, a couple that's now in their senior years. And I'm really upset, I'm not really upset, I'm sad about that because I think they wanted to stay here. And I would have appreciated their tax money to stay. Beyond the fact that I wanted my parents to still live 3 minutes away, for me, but yeah, so that's it.
Were you again?
Yeah, like me.
So Alex Hutchinson. I've been a member of planning and zoning now almost fully 8 years. Will be 8.5 years. I am not running for a new term. I'm a big believer in term limits. And so I want to live by what I believe. But this is something that I've talked to Kim and talked to our current chair, Nancy Held Sheehy, is something I think is really, really important. I grew up in Orange, but I've known Bethany because it's part of the BOW. Had good friends up in Bethany, so in high school, we were constantly making trips up here. We've been in town since 1988. So I have a daughter who graduated in 99, Amity. So do you know Becky Hutchinson?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, I do.
So your story, very close in terms of our family as well. The other sort of point that really kind of hit home for me is our son, who's living over in Hampton. Has started a family. He's got 2 kids. He very much wanted to get back into the Amity school system and preferred to come into Bethany, but was really looking at anything in Orange, Woodbridge, or Bethany. Took him 18 months. Finally was able to successfully find a piece of property and went through a pretty extended process of the bids, counter bids, and everything else like that. And turns out he is the neighbor of your brother-in-law, Bob, up in Knollwood. The point being that it took forever to find a house that could support the family, number one. That was reasonably affordable, that didn't need a ton of work. And it really kind of sparked in me, there's sort of both ends. When I originally ran for P and Z, one of the most moving stories I got from a citizen here was a woman, she and her husband, late 70s, early 80s. To your point, Tom, they couldn't support the house. The house was coming down around them. They couldn't support 2 acres. And she was very interested in Greenhaven Rocky Corner because she knew that they were smaller and some of them were affordable. Was heartbroken when she heard the affordable units were already gone. But that got me thinking about that. And then the other end of it is what my son's going through. So I really have looked at this. My viewpoint isn't about whether it's affordable, not affordable. It's really about sustainable housing options in the town. And we have to have options that are available to young families that want to move in to create the kind of vitality and energy that we need. And we have to have housing options for people who've grown up here, like your parents, that sadly have to move out of town because they cannot find something that meets their needs. So that's sort of my motivation with all of this. So with that, that's the formal introduction. I'm going to let Hiram and then Lena introduce themselves, and then Steve, if you just want to give a brief word, but Hiram.
Sure. Well, thank you very much. This is a really great group, and I really appreciate being able to work with you through this particular issue. I've been working with the commission. Some of you may remember when Skip Borgerson was chairman. Maybe not, but it's been a long time. And so I really appreciate the ability to work with all the various chairmen, Nancy and Kim, Sharon, all the way through the chairman. I think this is the first time that we've really had a great opportunity with such a good group to work on this particular issue so that we can tailor something that'll really work well in Bethany. I think that it's really important. All the things that you brought up are really important. There's so much going on right now in the legislature as well as in the economy to work both for and against this particular issue. So I'm looking forward to working with the group as much as possible and to help sort of move the appropriately sized and appropriately designed and appropriately located project forward for this group. So anything I can do to help out, I'm happy to do it. I've worked with a number of other towns recently. We've had some success, but we've also learned a lot of hard lessons. So right now the economy is really, really tough, and we need to figure out how to make that work for everybody. So any questions at any time, I'm happy to answer. So please let me know, and happy to work with this group. Thank you.
Thank you, Hiram.
Thank you.
Lena.
I'm Lena Fraser. I've been working in the town in 2017. I've been working for the town. But I lived in the town prior to that. My kids grew up here. They're definitely the Bethany boys. I am become a Bethany mom in many aspects. So I love the country lifestyle of Bethany, one of my favorite towns, of course. And I'm here just to help you guys out with whatever comes out from this committee. Thank you.
And Lena buried the lead. She's a zoning enforcement officer for the town of Bethany.
Yeah.
So she's a critical resource to planning, zoning, inland wetlands, as it relates to land use issues. And so, and Lena, has done an incredible job, not being trained formally for any of this, but stepped into the breach when we had a need. Has been an incredible resource. So thank you.
Thank you.
Steve.
Steve Winter, I was born and raised in lovely little Bethany. Briefly moved out of town in 2008. When I got married, could not afford a house in Bethany. A lot of that was because of economic collapse and whatnot, but still, it's not easy to afford a home here. I was lucky and able to come back. My mother passed away, my family and I, we now live in her house, the house I grew up in on Munson Road. My kids get to go to Amity schools. It's a nice place to raise a family. I am currently the chairman of the Economic Development Commission here in town. We were trying to figure out ways to have improvements to the town without changing the characteristic of the town very drastically, because there is a lot of love for the rural charm of the town, and keeping things like Alina said, country town. We're the only rural town in all of New Haven County. And to echo what Hiram's saying, that the housing is one of those things that we need to address, but it also needs to be curated and thoughtfully designed and presented in a way that fits the basically the skeleton of how the town and where it fits in. McMansions are, something that invaded our town back in the 90s and early 2000s, and that I don't think that's an affordable way to go anymore. People need to downsize, and there are, like you said, transitional people who are young people who don't have a family yet, and people who have families, so have not empty nesters, that may align their size and space needs a lot more than we think. And the EDC side of things is we're trying to figure out a way to keep our taxes down and grow our town appropriately to make it more affordable without overgrowth. So, and having affordable housing that meets the needs of people who want to be here, to be part of our community and be part of that economic development, I think is very important. So it was nice to invite you to come.
Good.
Well, thank you for joining us. So I'm gonna kind of get us into some of the organizational things here first. I did send out a set of meeting dates. So I've been going through a bit of a learning curve, that we are officially an appointed committee by the Board of Selectmen. So we have to abide by all the various requirements in terms of noticing and public record and minutes and things like that. So one of the things that I was educated on is that the best way to do this is to have standing. And we can decide as a committee whether we want to meet, we don't, but we have to constantly keep the public informed. We can't just decide Tuesday night at my house, let's go and have a meeting. So, so you've got the meeting dates. We already know that one of the dates, Labor Day, was probably not work for people, so we'll manage through that. But hopefully, people are sort of comfortable that the Monday seems to work, 7 o'clock. So I do appreciate that. We're all volunteers, so I know everybody's giving their time, and I know that not 100% of the time does it align with other priorities and schedules in life. So we'll manage through. But so any comments, questions, concerns about the dates that we've laid out there?
Works for me.
All good. That's great. This is the meeting room. And again, through some of the conversations with you, recognizing you also have other obligations in life, this will always be a hybrid meeting. So you can always come in on Zoom or you can come face to face. One of the things, again, I got educated on, I said, well, I even bother with the in-person, we'll do what we did last time. But was told, again, by our town clerk, that
guy.
that if we go to exclusively Zoom, any member of the public who would like to attend but doesn't have the equipment, the town has to provide for that. So that it adds an extra layer of complication. So we will always meet, I will always be here, or somebody will always be here, but we always have Zoom as sort of a fallback.
Not to put any pressure on anyone too, but I debated about coming or doing it. The guy emailed with you, Alex, and I'm really glad to be here in person. I'm glad. It's much easier for me, in my experience, to Zoom after I've met people and after we've
I
developed
agree.
some kind of a context.
Yeah.
Than to just sort of just do that.
I agree.
That said, there'd be times I'm sure I have to do it, but I'm just personally glad we're all here.
I agree 100%. Now, for for some of the people sitting around the table now, four of us are old friends and acquaintances
Mhm.
because Kim, Leslie, Lauren,
Mhm.
myself were part of the initial Affordable Housing Advisory Committee back in 2021, working with Hiram. So Hiram was our technical advisor guiding us through this. But to meet a regulatory requirement, we had to have a affordable housing plan developed and incorporated in our plan of conservation and development. And so it was a bit of a force march. Again, I appreciate and thank everybody for their time because we were meeting once every 2 weeks and we were still in the throes of COVID.
Mhm.
So we were.
That's the first time I've been in the same room with either of you
Right.
guys. Vets are always we see, but you know.
So we knew each other as little boxes on the
Mhm.
screen. That's
Yeah.
kind of what we knew. But the great thing, it was a really good group. And the knowledge and experience and the variety of perspective, I think was really, really important. So I was delighted that we had a good core. Two of the other members, Lars and Lars Mander and Jamie Sterling, I did talk to, and they just said they had other commitments and could not step up on that. So I do thank you and Tom as the new guy on the block.
Play catch up on thing.
We really do appreciate you putting your hand up and being part of the group. I did send around, hopefully people had a chance to take a look at it, but the charter. So we did find, I found it was helpful to have sort of a common reference point for the group to work with. In terms of what's our charge and what's our focus. And one of the most important things to keep in mind here is we're advisory.
Mhm.
I have done a lot of different, been part of a lot of different nonprofit board activity. And the one thing I learned was the real work of the board got done off schedule in little work groups, in committees, because particularly when you get into larger, I mean, it's not that our zoning commission is huge. But when you get the planning and zoning
Mhm.
has so many different obligations in terms of dealing with zoning issues and complaints and all the things that Lena brings to us every month that we really don't get to do this kind of focus on a particular issue. So having, from my perspective, the value of this group is to have people to spend a little bit more focused time on the issues and maybe we can investigate certain things that can be brought to planning and zoning to help either educate, inform, or in the form of a recommendation in terms of what are different activities.
Mhm.
All of the decision-making and all the authority lies with the Planning and Zoning Commission. So we are strictly advisory. We hold no other role. But I think
That's a terrific role to be playing.
it
This
is.
is the fun stuff, and then we don't have to take it on the
Oh,
chin.
we know.
I agree. I agree.
There's nothing better than sitting in the gym for the Greenhaven hearings.
Oh,
Oh, man.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So-
I mean, that's kind of what got me somewhat interested in planning and zoning because I was very frustrated by
Mhm.
a lot of misinformation that was passed out there and then the pressure that was being put on the Planning and Zoning Commission to make a decision that was really counter to what their charge is, which is to uphold the laws and regulations of the town and the state. So on the charter, I don't know if people had a chance to take a look at it. This is a draft at this point. If people like it, we can adopt it. If people want to think about it and come back with any suggested changes, we can do that as well. This is what we collectively own. So I don't know if there are any comments, questions.
I'd like to be, in part because it wasn't too specific. It kind of, gives latitude to do a lot of studying of a lot of things and talk about a lot.
Yeah.
It's not prescriptive, it's more just descriptive, kind of like that myself.
Good.
I don't know what others think.
Good. Once this is set up, it looks to me like this, what might come out of the state regarding housing is really in flux and it's gonna really up this year. Does that seem like the case? Where we're gonna find things coming to us that might affect.
We
where
are.
focus.
I mean, part of what we've talked about on the commission is if we don't proactively take action. At some point, I mean, we know this is a huge issue, not only in our state, but nationally. I mean, this is not unique to Connecticut in any way, shape, or form. If we don't responsibly address the issue, it'll be dictated. And it could be dictated in a way that a lot of people aren't happy about. There is a regulation out there, 830G.
Which frankly,
Everybody knows, I mean, so I think we talked about this, Tom. But basically that says that a town that does not have at least 10% of their housing stock deemed affordable. And there's a very specific definition as to what affordable is, deed restricted or publicly financed. That developers can come in and basically they can take on any sort of development, meeting normal zoning requirements, safety requirements, and everything else like that. But we can't dictate to them, we want it to look this way, or we prefer it not be quite that dense, we'd like a little bit different density or whatever. We have no right to do that.
Is it possible to align with developers in that sense? I mean, or is it just gonna be, we hope somebody comes along and says, yeah, I'm willing, to
oh,
accommodate
it's
you.
possible. There are a lot of small
Does that
towns,
happen?
not unlike Bethany, that have done this.
Okay.
Norfolk, Litchfield's bigger, but there's a bunch of them. Cornwall, Kent. Hiram knows, I mean, I've worked with a number of them myself, and it's not that we as a group would be interested in being a local developer. Although in those small towns, they actually have local, small town developers. But you can partner with another outside group and suggest something if you want to, if we want to. So it's fairly common, actually.
So the template's out there.
Yeah, it is. Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, I know we've talked about it at the commission that we'd like to be able to proactively do outreach to developers and potentially have developers come in and educate us. But again, we want to start with a framework and not just
Yeah.
a blank canvas of tell us what to do.
Mhm.
But for us to have thought through some of the parameters and then start to have that discussion. And we may get educated around, well, that parameter is going to be your problem. You're just not going to get people like me wanting to come in if we have to deal with that. So it is hopefully informing us in a way that we can be collaborative, and that is the ultimate goal I have.
The only thing the spirit in which I was trying to answer you, Tom, was not that I know what we should do, but I know that there are very concrete examples of great success in this area. That's the only point. And not that I think we rush from where we are now into encouraging developers to come. Because we have to figure out what it is that
Exactly.
we prioritize and recommend.
Right.
And then it can be done if the will is there.
I'll admit, I'm a firm believer in following somebody else's footsteps. So it's encouraging, yeah. Exactly.
Well, and it also, it's not a productive use of anybody's time for us to kind of go out in this direction, say, oh, this is a great plan, and bring it back and have every developer saying, good luck. I mean, it doesn't get us any further down the road.
Yeah.
So the goal of being practical, that we want to see tangible results as opposed to something else.
Yeah.
So I won't look for us to take formal action on this tonight unless everybody is very, very comfortable with it. It's an open document. People take a look at it. We can act on it at our next meeting to adopt it, but I just think it's good to have an anchor point that we can kind of.
What does our sociologist think?
Well,
Not to put you-
oh no, you want me to comment on a document?
Yeah,
I don't know how in the weeds you want me to get, but I am just curious about there's membership here, which I like. Are the terms of the membership, are they meant to be defined, or are they meant to be very just sort of like, here's the members?
We serve at the pleasure of the Board of Selectmen. So this is actually part of the conversation. When I met with them back in November, I believe. Yeah, Kim, you were there too. But that discussion is a standing, what is it? Are there staggered terms?
Mhm.
And everybody agreed it's better to leave this as sort of you guys are appointed, we collectively are appointed to be this committee. And at the pleasure of the Board of Selectmen, we could be reappointed at the end of the year. Now, this is an election year. If there's a change in administration, the new administration may come in and say, you know what? We don't want to do this, or we want different people, whatever it may be. My hope is we can keep this very apolitical.
Mhm.
And from my experience in town has been, for the most part, people are focused on what makes the town work, not do you have an R or D or whatever next to your name? So, and this is a good group. I mean, the 4 people that participated in the original development of the plan, which if you've had a chance to take a look at that, again, to your point, is pretty non-specific.
That's good. Oh, I was surprised that Hiram, I was gonna congratulate you. That was really well written. I reread it and I'm like, oh my gosh,
I
that was
know.
pretty good
Yeah.
stuff.
Well, I had a lot of help, but I think that Alex and the group
Yeah.
was tremendous to work with. So I think that's really good. Just quickly insert, Alex, one of the only things in far as the purpose is concerned, you might want to add something where, in addition to just looking at the plan, you might want to have something where the committee could come up with other things that you haven't thought about or that aren't not in the plan. And that's the only suggestion I would have with regard to the purpose, that you might want to consider adding that as well.
Under um, the various bullets, you mean, or?
It says consider any further revisions or additions to the adopted affordable housing plan.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
that doesn't cover what you meant, Hiram.
I think that's probably okay. I just want to be sure people are clear that it's more than just a document that we have written already. We may come up with some new things. There may be some new
Oh, absolutely.
things, whatever. That just make it as flexible as possible for you. That's all.
Yeah, absolutely. And by the way, for this group, our part of the original requirement to develop the affordable housing plan, that has to be updated every 5 years.
It's like
So-
2027.
Yeah, I think it got adopted officially right around July 2021. So we have 15, 16 months. So again, my hope is that we can feed in, our focus isn't to develop the plan. Our focus might be to provide some additional input to planning and zoning and say, hey, you've got to update your affordable housing plan. You might want to consider adding this, or this, but it's an actual responsibility of planning and zoning, not us. And the good thing is we have a good foundation to be working off of. So unless we're going to scrap the whole thing, it's a matter of either some tweaking or adding or something like that. So Hiram, if you could just quickly email to me, I will update the document, and Lauren or anybody else, if you have any comments. And then I'll get that back out to the group, and if people are comfortable with it, we can take action in terms of adopting that at this meeting.
Okay.
Good. Sounds good.
Okay. Under organizational issues, any other questions or comments at this point? Okay. So I'm gonna sort of use 4 and 5. Maybe we've got about 15 minutes or so of discussion, and I did not anticipate that we're gonna solve the world's problems here.
In 15
tonight.
minutes, why not?
Um, but for us to start thinking about housing and the various aspects, I think everybody in their introductory comments kind of laid out some of the critical issues that we have to think about. But this thing is so big that we really need to have a target point in terms of how we want to structure discussions from meeting to meeting so that we're not just kind of wandering all over the place. So I think the main thing I would like people to think about, and we can start the conversation now, but really think about how do we want to start focusing our attention. One of the things I did include was sending out the latest set of statistics data. But I think it was Hiram, was that 2021 or 2022 data for the housing?
This one,
Well,
Yeah.
it was newer than that. It might be even 23, Alex.
it says 2025 housing snapshot, but it says
But data, but I
in
think that
2021.
That's the most current one you have, I think.
Right.
That's right.
but it does
Twenty-
give some,
2019, this
Yeah,
is
it's kind of
the
neat.
2019.
It's well done.
and I don't think things have changed a lot. I mean, the housing market in general has been pretty jammed for the last 5 years. But it really does paint a very sobering picture as to why it's so hard to either get in or to get out of your house. Particularly with mortgage rates that people were locked into and what they would have to get into now. So I'm just gonna kind of throw it open in terms of thoughts and ideas.
Are you asking how we should proceed in terms of structuring future discussions, Alan? Or are you thinking, what are you thinking?
The way I sort of envision it is maybe picking a particular area that we agree we should look at a little bit more in depth.
Okay.
And using that as a guide for people who want to do a little homework and digging. So that our next meeting, we can come back and Leslie can say, well, here's what I found, and Tom say, well, I found this, and put it onto the table and start hashing it through to see where it goes. But again, this is something that we're not going to solve overnight, and we have to pick a starting point. I'll give you an example. And I talked with Hiram a little bit about this. God help me, but I actually went back and reread our regulations, planning and zoning. It is a thrilling read for anybody.
How well did you sit
I
that?
can't stand for the good stuff, never mind.
Man. But my intent was to try to dig through this. What was it? To find. I give you, I give you. And I'll be happy to send this
Oh, is that
around,
the,
but try to dig through to find all the relevant sections within the regulations that either impact or would be impacted by actions to try to promote new housing alternatives and things like that. And we do have in our regs, we have special districts and regulations. We have an elderly housing district set of regulations that gets into permitted uses, procedures for establishing the EHD, the elderly housing district, general requirements and development standards. We also have a section in the regs on housing opportunity development district, AHOD. In terms of what's eligible, what the bulk area, dimensional, open space requirements are, and maximum density. And then we also have language on attainable housing overlay zone.
When did that happen? The attainable overlay. Was that
Um,
always, or is that new?
There was something.
It wasn't always.
That got added in when Rocky Corners was.
Yeah, that's right.
I think it was the first,
It was-
wasn't that the first Rocky Corner, Howard?
Well,
Well,
no, actually,
Rocky Corner,
yeah, really wasn't there. I mean, they tried to use that regulation. It wasn't successful, and then they came back with the 8-30G. So
Yeah.
it's a suggestion, and I can talk a lot more about that at some future meeting too. I think it has a lot of flexibility that you may want to look at in the future as well.
I'd love to start there then. I'd like it for my own education to have the next meeting start with what are we currently
Mm.
allowed to have?
That'd be great.
And where are its strengths and weaknesses, because it gets too abstract to kind of dream of something without knowing what we actually have.
Yeah,
And
it seems
maybe
like a-
Hiram could be a resource
seems
to
like
us
a
as well
loose
as you
one, yeah.
guys about that.
right,
Cause that, now you say, I remember I was part of this group that tried to do some elderly housing years ago. What's this?
with the one up at.
Yeah, we went all over the place. He went to New Hampshire.
JB Gardner?
Yes.
Yes.
JB Gardner corralled a group of us and we actually went around looking at sites. This was now, I hate to say that, I didn't have gray hair at the time. So that elderly housing thing came out of that as a way to just sort of try to tease something into writing that could allow it,
What is,
but I've forgotten about
what is this new concept now about the tiny homes? Because that's another thing that came out recently.
it.
Tiny homes.
Don't know.
I think it's a fad.
It's mentions, I think.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not on the committee, I'm just here.
Oh, yeah, no, but you can have it. I don't know if you already had it or not.
Is everybody got it?
At some point, I'd also like to look at the age demographics of the town and kind of figure out what's going on with that.
Mhm.
Because I had seen data that's now a few years old that I thought was showing that the town is aging, but there
Older,
was,
Yeah.
but there seemed to be. And so here's where I'm a little confused, at least in the short run, there seemed to be kind of like a boom of like families who were coming from, the city. And so they're bringing their kids here and that was driving down the average age, but I don't know if that's still happening or if that was kind of like a shorter trend. I would be
Mhm.
interested in kind of, I mean, I could probably.
We
look at
could
that
sort
data.
of see where's the curve going.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm just curious because that also, I
Yeah.
think, plays a role.
Yeah. In terms of need.
So Hiram,
Yeah.
I believe from the survey that we did. And the data, the most current data we had at the time we did the survey, there was a lot of congruence. I remember that we had an average age of over 48.
I think it's here, it says,
It did- does it have any-
21% 19 and under, 15% 20 to 34, 31% 34 to 54, 13% 55 to 64. 65 and over is 18.2. Median age of Bethany residents is 42.9. This is 2022.
Mhm.
Huh, okay.
The survey,
It's just, I think we need the data that,
Right.
tells.
this was the survey from the last time.
But I do remember when we
I'll
did
be
the
glad to take a
housing
look at
survey.
that, sure.
But the people that responded might well have been the group that wanted it more, which would be the older. group,
Correct.
maybe, too.
Yes, I mean, so
We can feel
it
that.
it probably
in the
gets
survey.
skewed,
Mhm. A little bit.
but I think that the people who conducted the survey also concluded it wasn't too distorted from the fact that we were an older population.
Right.
42 doesn't sound.
Well, but
Yeah, that's
I do believe that when we did this, we were at 48 and the area was like 41.
Yeah.
Greater than
That
that.
was.
But to your point, Lauren, about the age. I think in particular over the last 5 years, again, the housing market's been stuck. And I think we've had a lot of people who are staying in their home because they don't have a viable alternative or they cannot afford to find other residents. So that to me is just sort of pushing the age up and up and up.
Yeah, and now I agree.
Um. So back to your point, Leslie, I mean, sort of picking, I mean, do you want to start with?
I would enjoy, it's a funny
Yeah.
word for something like that, so maybe I don't, like a summary or a reminder of what it says. What is our current reality? Sort of like the age thing. What is the current reality in our zoning structure that would either encourage or inhibit real housing options? Because we may have more than we know.
Right,
I have to confess, and I'll keep saying it as we go forward, that I am not someone who thinks more density means more affordability.
Mm.
And there's a real drumbeat about that at the state level.
right,
I mean, witness Manhattan. I mean, density does not equal affordability. They're very detached, different things. But that said, I don't know what density we need to have, or if we need any changes for that in this community. We may, but till I know, I can't remember what we have.
right. I mean, that the way I think about it, and again, Bethany has a lot of constraints that work against density.
Yeah, natural ones.
Natural, correct,
The reason we're all here.
Infrastructure.
Yeah.
exactly. But it could be that, instead of 2 acre zoning for a single family house, if we had alternative, like we identified particular zones to say in this zone, this housing opportunity development zone, developers can put, as long as they're meeting all the various components of QVHD and everything else like that, you can put up to 4 units on a 2 acre lot. So I think, to your point, I mean, I think of it in terms of not being technically affordable, but being more naturally occurring.
Yeah,
affordable.
and I'd dispute that, Alex, but we can talk more about that, because I think that when the motive is profit, that's where it goes. It doesn't go to any kind of sort of ongoing affordability.
Well, and the other thing too is every time you build something that has so many affordable units, you up the bar.
Yeah.
Because it adds,
Yeah.
Look at Greenhaven, 33 units. There were what, 3 or 4 that were affordable, would have been affordable, but then you've increased the ones that are not in that category.
Right, so
So
in
you're
terms of the
raising-
goal of.
you're raising
meeting
your
at
goal every
10%,
time.
yes, right. If the goal is to reach the 10%, that.
Which we're never gonna do.
But to me, allowing more profit into a situation as the net result of density is not, except for possibly a tax benefit, is not the purpose of this. I mean, if you were to say anybody who comes and builds more than 4 units, one of them has to be permanently affordable. Then maybe then there's a social benefit, then there's a
Correct.
community benefit
But,
of increasing and changing the density.
and
Just to change the density alone only enriches somebody's pocket,
But
in my opinion.
those are the various kinds of mechanisms to
yeah.
think about, which
Yeah.
is if we had a particular designated zone to say that we're gonna allow higher level density, but if you come in and do it for
You have to
every
do
3
X.
units
Yeah.
that you wanna do at market rate, one's gotta be.
Yeah,
affordable.
whatever. I could see a senior community working beautifully.
Right.
I know being retired out of the subcontracting and the construction. I had friends that were building single family homes and fell out of it because there was no more land and quit out of the business. And I remember I've got a lot of work up in Woodbury area, Sudbury, and
Yeah.
I
Yeah, power.
Have to go there.
did a few jobs where people had been looking for 2 years for a small ranch in Woodbury. That was the waiting list. So
Yeah, there is a market for them.
Yeah.
There really is.
Yeah.
But.
Okay, so, how do people feel about Leslie's suggestion that, do you want to particularly take a particular section, whether it be the elderly housing district regulations, housing opportunity development district, or attainable housing overlay zone?
I'd like an overview on all of them, because I don't think it would take that long, kind of know what we've done.
Okay,
I bet Hiram could do this in one shot.
Yeah, I mean, just
Yeah.
to get familiar with the terminology and what's in place, Hiram, that, so we
Sure.
could understand it, a scan,
That
so.
would be great. Is that something you'd be comfortable with, Hiram, for the next meeting?
Sure, no problem. Yep, happy to do that.
Wonderful. Okay. Great. Um. So there's a difference between my watch and that clock.
Don't come to that.
According to my watch, I still have 7 minutes. According to that clock, we're out of time.
The
So
clock's
I'm not.
That's so mean you can get out of work early.
I've
It's
never,
part-time.
never looked at
Part-time,
it
yeah.
like, it's always off.
Okay, Alex, and as an observer here, I don't know how this commission is gonna work as far as, I know when we go to P and Z, public's not allowed to speak. I know when my EDC meetings are going on, we encourage people to come and participate, so if I'm overstepping, please let me know. I know that one, and I know this is not a fully comprehensive list of everything, but one of the things I think that would be important to include on this, and Hiram could speak on this too, is that the P and Z's recent addition for B and I zones that can have duplexes.
Okay, good.
And where that might fit into
Yeah.
and adding, not
Yeah.
necessarily fully more dense housing, but
Right.
more well
Yeah.
used.
Yeah.
Or more efficient use of building space.
Mhm.
Yep.
So,
That's good. Okay.
Okay. Um. Other thoughts or ideas about how we might want to focus, target our time?
Step at a time.
I think we just get going, and as we get going, I think
Mhm.
we'll kind of find our
Simple.
way a little bit.
Didn't you send around something from the COG? Council of Governments?
Yeah, I mean, I've actually gotten quite
Okay,
involved
so-
with them.
There's the meeting coming up.
Oh,
It's the one
That
with
was the
Sean,
one,
right?
yeah.
Sean Gill was gonna talk from Partnership for Strong Communities about state legislation or something. Is that right, or did I dream that?
Is that the one that's this,
I think it's coming
This
up, the
week?
meeting, yeah.
Yeah,
or next week,
Okay.
rather?
I kind of want to go to that. I want to.
It's actually, I think it's a hybrid, it can be a Zoom or in
Okay, good.
person.
Yeah, that's even better.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Scrog's actually been a very good resource.
Mhm.
I've gotten more and more sort of involved
Mhm.
with them.
Good.
And by default, I became the Bethany representative to Scrog for plenty.
Good.
But it's been good. It's,
When I search through my emails on Scrog, it comes up as Scrog rep, which I think was.
but yes, no, Scrog is a good resource and they might be able to provide some technical assistance. So part of what I want to get a better handle on, I'll have to talk to Paula. But I know at the state level, there's some technical assistance resources. There may be some within Scrog as well. But it has to work, I believe, through the designated CEO of the
Yeah.
town. So it's not just, hey, we want to get some help. But I'll talk to Paula about how we might be more officially recognized to be able to receive that assistance. Because I know they're looking to help out wherever they can.
And I think what I remember, wasn't there something about state legislation at the next meeting relevant to affordable housing? I may have dreamt this.
There was some email last week about the.
That's correct, there's a meeting about housing, something.
Yeah, something like so.
Yes.
To the extent that what happens and passes the legislature can have implications for community.
Mhm.
The guy, I think it's the Partnership for Strong Communities guy is gonna talk.
Aaron, do you have
That's
any?
right. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
right,
it's-
exactly.
yeah.
There's a ton of legislation that's out there right now. Some of it's helpful, some of it's not. But there's a lot of testimony that's been going on and there are summaries of that stuff around and I get you a summary for it. You can take a look at that.
It's March 13th.
March
Yes,
13th.
it's March 13th.
I thought you said an email. Yeah.
Yeah, there was some general email, if not, I'll resend it again, just in case, but I think you send it, you send it to
I think
them.
so.
Yeah. Something like that.
Yeah.
Just a point of clarification, Hiram, since we're advisory and we're not. I
Don't
forget the
say
word I'm looking for.
legitimate.
Not legitimate, but we can email each other things, right? It's not considered.
Yeah, I think you can do it a little bit. I wouldn't do it a lot, especially if something's really controversial.
Yeah,
And
But
I would also say this too. I don't advise you to do a whole bunch of stuff on Facebook and social media while you're doing this stuff.
Oh,
Try to
no.
keep it on the open, try to keep it in the minutes. I think that's
sure.
much less subject to criticism if it's all in the open. Start getting into social media stuff, it just goes crazy and people say all kinds of things that are not correct. So
Yeah.
just
No, my question is more, if we find an article or something that we want to share with the group,
Yep.
do we have to send it to Lena or Alex to distribute, or can we just send it to everybody?
yeah, you can send it to whomever you like.
Okay.
Yeah, I would suggest that you send a copy to Lena so that we can all have it, but that's possible.
Do you want me to create like a group?
A
where
folder, yeah.
Like a group where everybody can dump documents in there for one group and maybe grant access, see if I can grant access.
What are you using, like a?
Like
Like a
Google
share,
Drive
like a
or
share,
Teams
like
or-
a, yeah, like a drive like that.
Yeah.
Otherwise it's
Like OneDrive?
yeah, like a OneDrive.
Oh, God.
I know, I'm struggling.
That's fine, that's fine.
It's
Well,
easy, it's easy.
Does the town,
All you need is access.
No,
to it.
it's,
does the town have a box account? Not
Uh,
Dropbox, but box.
No, I don't think so, but I could always inquire about it. There's other ways of making
It's
it easy.
inexpensive.
Other ways of
Yeah.
making it easy because
It's-
we have a lot of technology that's,
I mean, per user, it's like $7 a month or something like
yeah.
that. But the nice thing is, it's a fully secured area. You can dump documents. It can be shared back and forth. It doesn't, you don't have to worry
Okay.
about size and file limits and things like that, so.
But here we're trying to be real transparent and stuff too, right? So
Because
we don't hear.
if I create a OneDrive, all the documents are there and like if they need to be, then I can just share everything and then everybody, if you want, they can access it, no problem as well. So I'll figure this out, just make it easier, 1, 2, 3 step. For everybody to have access.
Okay.
Lena,
Brian,
one thing you
watch
could
it,
do,
it-
one thing I seen be very effective is that, I mean, you have the Housing Advisory Committee on the town website. You could just put a couple folders there, just dump it all in the folders and people can
Well,
take a look at it.
Yeah,
that-
thank you,
Yeah, actually, that's a good idea.
yeah.
Okay. All right, it is 8 o'clock. So, thank you so much all for coming. It's really great to have everybody in person. And again, if this works for you, great. I'm always gonna plan to be here. Rena's always gonna plan to be here. But if things come up, yeah, dinner or family stuff and you gotta do a Zoom,
8 p.m.
that's gonna work as well. So thank you all.
Won't be so function.
Yeah.
Thank you, Hiram. Have a
And
good
so
night.
we are adjourning. our
Good to see you,
meeting.
man.
Good.
Thank
We'll see
you, thank
see you
you.
next time.
Thank you, Howard.
Thanks, Hiram.
Okay.
So Steve, just if we want to talk to you,